spiritual gifts. And that's going to lead to a discussion of unity. So you're right only after you set the foundation. Because chapters 12, 13, and 14, Paul is now talking about the use of spiritual gifts. And we see that there are all sorts of problems, divisiveness, just over these 9 gifts. And the top of the list was which one? Speaking in tongues. It's some glamour gift for some reason. And so here we're going to find then again that in the beginning of the book, remember in chapter 1, verse 10, Paul says, I don't want any divisions among you. The same mind, same opinion, but you be complete. You know, all together is one. And here in this section, we're halfway through chapter 12. Paul's going to talk about the one body. And there's really just one point that you need to learn from this. There's many members, one body. He's going to say that 4 times in this section. Many members, one body. Let's look at that and we'll point each one out. First of all, verse 12, he's not changing subjects when he's now all of a sudden talking about the body of Christ. He's setting the foundation to get them united rather than divided. Okay? Verse 12, even as the body, talking about our physical body, is one, yet has many members. That's the first time. He's using the physical body as an example of our spiritual body in Christ. All the members of the body, though there are many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we're all baptized into one body, whether Jew or Greek, whether slave or free, we're all made to drink of one Spirit. Verse 14, for the body is not one member, but many. So there's a second time he says. Then you go all the way down to verse 19. No, that's not what. Verse 20. And now there are many members, but one body. Now, if he repeat the same thought over and over, I think this is a duh, but what's he trying to get us to understand? Many members, one body. Can you have one body with one member? No, you have one body, but you're going to have many members, yet there's still just one. Until we get that, we're not going to have unity in the church. Now, verse 27 is kind of the conclusion. Now, you are Christ's body and individually members of it. So here we see the central thought, and I just want you to think about that, and we're going to go back to this chapter here. Because same mind, same judgment, all agree, no division. You say, well, that's not possible. Well, it is possible, because is your body united with many members? Yes. Or does your hand just do whatever it wants? Oh, sorry. Man. No, something's wrong with that guy. Well, is it possible for your body to be united with many members? So is it possible for a church of 1,000 to be united with many members? If we're all invested in it. If we all own it. If we're all in 100%, it's possible. Now, this church is full of problems. You know, working backwards, they're making a mess of the Lord's Supper. People are not waiting for others. Some are hungry, some are full. All right? Then in chapter 11, there's problems early in the chapter with authority and roles of authority. We see in going backwards, they're suing people. They're having problems with their liberties, eating meat, causing brothers to stumble. They're harboring immorality within the camp. They have elitism and preacheritis. It's a divided church. Paul, beloved brethren, he said, just like your body has a lot of members, there's just one body. Do you know how many bones are in your body? 206. I counted them before I came down. You laugh. I have that portable x-ray machine. All right? And every body bone is necessary, isn't it? You have 5 major internal organs. And if anyone quits, you're going to die. Many members, one body. And that's what he's talking about here, is what he wants us to see. No divisions in the church. So that's the idea. That's the concept that we have to accept. And once we're all in that I need you just as much as you need me. We're going to have a stage for unity. We're going to talk about Not independence, but interdependence. There's a difference. All right? Not dependence, but interdependence. Okay? Both those extremes, independence and dependence, they're problematic. But interdependence is important. We're connected to each other. I need you and you need me. And we work together. There's synergy. And that's the word that he used, actually. Look in chapter 12 there, when he got done talking about, let me see where we're. Where was I going to look at? I don't see the one I'm looking for. I'm sorry? No, that's not the one I wanted. All right, I'll skip it. That is mine. Okay, so let's go through this and look at what he has to say here. Many members, one body. Now, so when he talks about this, when you have many members, we're talking about a large plurality. Now, in South Salem, we have about 140 members that are on our list, okay? That's not a large church by any means, but it's not necessarily a small one. The average congregation across the United States, about 50 to 60 people when you go take them all in. So we're above average, okay? Now, with 40 people, you're going to have diversity in thought. Now, let's talk about just worship. I'm not going to show for raise for hands, but how many people like old songs? And then other people, how many like new songs? Okay. And some people say, well, I like the old songs, and I don't like the new songs. And other people say, well, I like the new songs, I don't like the old songs. And other people say, well, I don't like either of them, I just want to hear more preaching. And then other people say, well, no, I like less preaching and more singing. Right? Now, can I go on with all the preferences that people have? We should spend more time at the Lord's Supper and less with the preacher. We should meet longer rather than shorter. And other people say, no, we ought to get out quicker than we should, rather than stay longer. And it goes on and on. You have 140 people, and how many different opinions you have about which song should we sing next? 140 opinions, all right? And which one's right? None of them. And so a plurality of members inherently has challenges, but we don't resent them. We embrace them, okay? We say, okay, that's good, because you wouldn't want to be just me, would you? Or you wouldn't everybody, I won't pick on anyone, but you wouldn't want everyone to be Clinton, or you wouldn't want everyone to be JC, would you? Cherry goes, yeah. Lots of JCs. He's the best, all right? So when there's a plurality, there's never any two alike. We call them snowflakes, Christians. Not that they're weak and melt away, but there's individuality. Not two of us are alike. Now, who designed it to be that way? Now, we're going to see later, God places you in the body where he wants you. Where he desires, not where you want to be. So all of us are unique, and all of us are uniquely important. Many members, one body. Now, as we go through this, diversity, of course, is essential, isn't it? It's essential. You say, well, what do you mean it's essential? Well, it's just like your physical body. And he's going to say, what if the whole body were an eye? Where would the hearing be? Then he says, if the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? Now, he's making statements of absurdity, and I think actually he's kind of humorous. Because can you imagine a person saying, well, let's read this, verse 15. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I'm not part of the body. I want to be a hand, a helping hand. I'm just a toe. Well, does that make you any less part of the body just because you're not a hand? Well, that's stupid, of course, right? And then he says, it is not for this reason any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I'm not part of the body. It is not for this reason any less part of the body. So just because you're not who you want to be doesn't make you any less part of the body or any less important. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now here he is, kind of funny. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? And that's where we read, all right? All are essential. Now, there's an eye. Did you see it bounce in there? Because that eye can't do anything but roll around because it has no feet, no hands, no ears. All it does is what? Now, can it tell you what it sees? No. But it sees really well, all right? And it's kind of stupid, isn't it? And then Paul says, well, what if everybody was just an ear, the whole body? Now, that ear has some hands and feet. I can hear. Well, good for you. Can you speak? No, but I can hear. Well, actually, he's speaking when he said no. Can you speak? It's stupid, isn't it? Isn't he being funny? Do you see an ear? I used to think this. And it's a big mistake. I don't know where I got it from. Maybe just the culture of the church I was in. That to be faithful, every Christian, when they grew up, had to look alike. Let's talk about the males, all right? If you're going to be a faithful male Christian, this is what's going to be expected of you as you mature in Christ. You're going to be able to lead singing. You're going to be able to lead prayers. You're going to be able to preach a lesson and certainly teach class. That's easy. And so you can do all those things in public service because if you don't, well, you're not really just, working on your spirituality. Now, maybe I thought that because I grew up in a little congregation of 35 people where everybody had to do everything. And so at age 14 and 15 and 18, I was teaching class. I'd lead prayer. I'd lead the Lord's Supper. I would preach a sermon. I'd have to lead singing. Did I say that already? And so you do everything, so you get this mindset, everybody should be able to do everything, and you all should look alike. And so what was I doing in my mind? Cloning Christians. There comes another one. There comes another one. They all look like what? The same thing, a mouth, an eye, or an ear. Now, Paul's saying what? That's not possible, and you don't want it, because if everybody was an eye, where would the hearing be? And if everyone was the ear, where would the speaking be? Where would the hand be? Where would the walking be? Everybody is what? Now, I know there's some people who are not. If I left, the church would say, yeah, that's fine. Oh, is so-and-so gone? Oh, yeah, only a year. I didn't notice. And that's what they think, that no one would notice. And maybe it's true to a point we don't value the unseemly members. I'm using that language because Paul uses it. That doesn't mean they're of less value. They just don't have the visible role that other people do. Now, who usually is the face of the congregation? I'm not about the face. Yeah, it's the preacher, not Jack. It's the preacher, because after I'm gone, there'll be another face. Now, does that make him any more important than anyone else? He's just the mouth, right? Okay? And sometimes preachers have, stop it. I'm leaving myself wide open, right? But that's their job, is to talk, all right? And so a lot of times people, I don't preach, I don't teach, I don't lead prayer, so I'm not of any value. That's not the case. Diversity is essential, and there's no vestigial Christians. What do I mean by that? What is that appendix? What do they call that organ? Do I pronounce it right? I can never pronounce it right. Vestigial? Vestigal? What? Vestigial. Is that it? They mean they're organs that, through evolution, not that we buy into that, are of no value anymore. Like the appendix. So you can cut it off because, like, there's a little tail on the end of your spine, and it used to be a tail, but since we don't have tails anymore, there's a little bone there. It's another vestigial. I can't pronounce it correctly. And a lot of times Christians think, well, I'm not really used. I just kind of hang on here. I'm like sort of like a mole on the body. I'm part of the body, but really not important. No, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Everyone's important. So what does he say? He goes, each one, God has placed the members, each one of them in the body, just as he desired. Did anybody have one of these? Mr. Potato Head. Now, why would I bring up Mr. Potato Head? Did you guys have one? Really? They still make them? Many members, one body. Your job was what? Put it together correctly and not make a monster, Dave. All right? The hands go where the hands are supposed to go, and the legs go where the legs go, and the feet and the lips and the eyes, right? And that's what he's illustrating here. God put you where he wants you, not where you want to be, or not where someone else wants you to be. And our job is to understand our role and how we fit in this body and connect and serve one another to make the body as a whole work. United and fully functioning. And that means, as we get through this, if God put you where you are, is there any room for anyone to be proud for their function in the church? Is there any room for someone to be ashamed for their role in the church? No. Because basically they're saying if they're proud, I did this on my own. No, what? God put you and gave you the abilities that you got, and he put you in the church or hit the body the way he wanted. And the person is ashamed, like, I'm just no value. They're saying, God blew it, right? No, God knows what he's doing. And he goes on to say, if they're all one member, where would the body be? No, there has to be diversity, plurality. Are we okay with that? Now, yes, go ahead.
You know, it's real important when we stop thinking about how everybody has a special place here. I kind of think that there's one common glue in everybody is love.
Yes.
If everybody has love, there's a common.
That's right. And in fact, at the end of chapter 12, he says, I'm going to show you a more excellent way. And he's going to talk about, in chapter 13, love. Because that's going to be the glue that binds us together. Can you imagine a football team? How many players on a team at any one given moment on the field? 11. All right? Offense, who leads that team? The quarterback. Now, who's most important then? Well, if the center didn't snap him the ball, what would the quarterback do? Absolutely nothing. All right? Well, the guards, if they didn't block and the defensive lineman just came through like a sieve, what would the quarterback do? He'd run that way. And he gets smashed over and over. Could everyone be a quarterback? Is everyone essential? Yes. And we understand that in sports, we understand in business, but sometimes we think in the congregation, I'm not important. Yes, Sally. Ugh. Linda.
Okay, so if I see myself in a certain role and I'm really comfortable with that role and I think that's my gift,
Yes.
and I perform that gift and I use it, the way I hope God would be pleased. But then there's this other part where people are saying, well, Linda, you may not be comfortable in this area, but push yourself to do this because scripturally, it talks about
Sure.
saying hospitality or for men, getting up and leading prayers or whatever.
Sure.
How do you know
That's a great question.
when you push yourself
Right.
to do something you're uncomfortable, or you step back and say, okay,
Right.
I have my role. Be thankful and content
Right.
with my role.
Did you understand her question, everybody? You hear it? All right, so let's just say I'm a foot. You say, man, maybe I could do a little handwork too, just helping. And, well, I'm really good at a foot. Should I just continue to be foot, or do I become awkward and clumsy by doing something I wasn't designed to do? That's a great question. On the other hand, a lot of us have many talents, right? And a lot of people, for example, let's just say a preacher, if they never, ever challenge themselves, I couldn't give a lesson. Well, let's try it. I'll work with you. How many men never would have become a preacher if someone didn't challenge to preach the first time? So there's a balance between always trying to expand yourself, but not being crazy, right? And by time you get older, I almost said your age, that would have been strike two, calling you Sally. we learn who we are. And let me say this, I'm ahead of myself. A lot of times people say, well, I taught my quarter in the back and I'm done. Let someone else do it. Wait a second. If you're great with kids, especially little kids, which it takes a certain personality, and that's your gift, excel in it passionately. I mean, yes, rotate every now and then to get a break. We all need a break. But why do you need to do 3 months and you're out? I mean, just do it. I mean, I preached my last 3 months. That's a quarter. Someone else take over. Would that fly? No. See what I'm saying? So yes, on the other hand, and go with what your gifts are. And we're going to think outside of the worship service too. We're talking about functioning of the church. And I'll give some examples of that. Yes?
Well, I like what you use the children for that. I taught for 27 years and I love kids.
Yes.
And when you're teaching kids, you don't discourage. You don't say, no, you can't do that. You say, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And you encourage them. You push them a little bit, not too far.
That's right.
And just push them and say, yes, you can. And when they do
That's
it,
right.
you say, oh, I knew you could do it. You're so good.
All right. Should some people not be teachers of kids? They're grumpy and negative, and they just beat the kid down. Do we need people right here teaching the kids? Oh, yeah, very good. See, you have a gift. Use it, yes.
It is possible that as you age, what your passion is or what you excel at changes.
That's true, too. It does. And that's okay. Go with that, all right? I just want us to get to honor everybody. And then everyone be invested in what they can do. Because when you're not doing what you have been designed to do, someone else has to pick up the pace and they can't do what they're supposed to do. Or the church it's dysfunctional because it's hurt, it's lacking. So everyone honor their place and what they're supposed to do. So here's a misconception, and I already talked about that we're all supposed to look like. One body, and what's the point? What? Many members, but what? One body. Good. So looking back, now we're in verse 21. That I cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Or again, the head to the feet, I got no need of you. On the contrary, it is much truer that the members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we deem less honorable, on these we bestow more abundant honor, on our unseemly members to have more abundant seemliness. Whereas our seemly members have no need of it, but God has so composed the body, there's the word I was looking for, that's like a word we get a symphony from, where you put all these parts together and it's beautiful music. God's so composed the body with all the different members so that, where am I? So compose the body, giving more abundant honor to that member which lack. There should be no division in the body, but the members should have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, what? Everybody suffers. And if one member's honored, what? When the quarterback throws a touchdown, who wins the game? Everybody wins on the team. Even in the defense, the people sitting on the bench. So let's look at this. In a congregation, God sees one body. Now we're totally reversed here. Because first we were emphasizing the many members. But now he's saying one body with many members. So we see, and it's easy to see, a diversity of members. But when God looks down, yes, he recognizes every person individually. But he sees what? One body, and he wants to see it function as one. You see, you with me there? Many members, but he sees one body. And each one has an equal relationship with God. Even though our roles or functions may differ, we all have equal value to God. And that's why he said, even though we deem some as less honorable, often they're more important to the work of the church, just like in your own body. And that's why we're going to talk about interdependence. And when we talk about interdependence, there's some people that feel excluded from a congregation, and there's some people that wish to exclude. Now, I'm not saying here, but overall, you see these scenarios taking place. Was that true with the church at Corinth? Yeah, some people are wanting to exclude others. You're of no value, you're not important, and we'll just go on without you. All right? And it's this elitism, this egocentric, that it's all about me because I'm a mouth, I'm a more visible part. But then there's others, on the other hand, they've got this self-deprecating attitude. I'm of no value and woe is me, and God doesn't love me and I'm not important. And we addressed that already. And they feel excluded, though, and some of them feel excluded because people do exclude them. So we got all these dynamics going on. You with me? So let's talk about the first one. Some that feel excluded. First of all, is that feeling legitimate when you consider what God sees and how he's composed the body? No. Now, you might have an atmosphere where others don't honor you as part of the body, and we're going to address that in a second. But when we get right down to it, do I have a value in God's eyes as part of the body of Jesus Christ? And does God exclude me at all? No. So the second issue then is, what if other members don't honor me? And this is kind of hard because it's not like I want attention. I'm not talking about me, but it's not like you need attention, but I have a gift. I have ability. And people don't utilize it. They don't value me for who I am and what I can do. Does that happen? And maybe it's because the way you're packaged, maybe the way you dress, your ethnicity, your background, how long you've been in the church. Maybe it's the way you look, your language. There could be lots of things that people kind of just, all right, you know. So what can we do as a congregation to make each person, especially the ones that feel maybe on the fringe, more part of the congregation?
Number one, I think everybody needs to get to know everyone better.
Okay, and how are you going to do that?
I call it socializing, getting together, dinner,
Okay,
interacting. But also, a lot of times, if you don't know someone, you don't know some of their abilities, what they actually can do.
okay,
So from fair assessment, how can you assign them assignment when you don't know what they can do?
okay. I know Jeff's big about talking about relationships, and that's what you're saying, building relationships. And sometimes it's just over dinner, right? Or lunch. You get to know people. Yes?
That's why I love that survey that they do, and I think they do it once a year where you say, would I be willing to do this or this?
Yes?
Or that?
A work of service, right. But how can we make others feel like they're part of this group and they're essential and connected so they don't feel like, well, I'm not really knowing. Yes?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is when they walk in the door, we need to be friendly.
Okay.
Welcome them and say that we're glad to see them. I heard that you were sick. Oh, I'm so glad that you came in. You know, there's so many things we can see.
Okay.
Smile, just
All right.
welcome them.
All right. So especially if you have a new Christian, do they need to feel that? Now, there's two ways you could do that. So I'm going to use Mariano. Hey, Mariano, I missed you last week. Where were you? All right. Now, how does that come across? Negative. Well, I did miss him. Where were you? But is that the way to go about it? What should I say? I'm so glad to see you, Mariano. I thought you were sick or something because you weren't here last week, so I'm glad you're here. Is that better? Can you say the same thing and inquire? All right? So it's often the tone and it's just the attitude. You're trying to build up rather than tear down. Like, hey, Paul, notice you were on the Lord's Supper. You didn't have a tie on. What's wrong? Does that help? Or say, hey, Paul, I really appreciate your prayer on the Lord's Supper. It's really good to see you up there. Is that totally different? Now, I can say Paul because he understands. But a new Christian or a young Christian, is that a big difference when you approach them? We have to check ourselves and what we say to others and make sure we say things that build up rather than tear down. So, well, I'm just trying to help them. Well, that kind of help they don't need. All right? You with me what I'm saying? All right? And I have to work on calling Linda Sally because that's not very nice. Doesn't make her feel part of the group when I'm... Yeah, all right. So, some feel excluded, and some people, they have this, like it's all about me. I've been in congregations, and I've met preachers that it's their church. It's their church. Is that ever the case? It's one man's church. Well, we started my family, and we've been here for 40 years. I thought it was Christ's church. I thought he was the head. Well, I know that, but, when you got as much invested as I do in this congregation, and they mostly feel part of and tied to it. I get that, but it's not their church, is it? And everyone's important. And so no self-loathing and no elitism. So there's I didn't really talk about interdependence. What is interdependence then? What do we mean by that? Okay. What's dependency? I need you. Okay, there's no one here that I'm thinking of. I'm just clearing that right now. Okay? So if you think I'm talking about you, I'm not. Unless you want to talk to me later, maybe I am. But there's some people, they always come to church with problems. Oh, woe is me. I got this. I need this. I don't know what I'm going to do here. And I need to do it. It's drama, spiritual crisis, benevolence, and they look for the church just to help them survive. Now, there's a time when everyone has a low point, right? And we want to be there because when one member suffers, what? Everybody suffers. But that person, they're just dependent, and we enable them by just always bailing them out. And they're just a drag on the congregation. Have you known someone like that? Don't raise your hand. And don't point. All right. And there's no one here that I'm thinking of. That's why I said that. But I've seen that in congregations. That's unhealthy. All right? Yes.
I've seen that the last 3 months.
Okay.
Supporting the company.
Oh, interdependence. Yes, supportive of you. That's what we're going to get to. Now, what's independence? I don't need you. That's a problem with preachers. It's been a problem with me. Lone Ranger. No sidekick, right? Just Lone Ranger. I'll do it. I'll do it. Now, when it comes to school, I'll teach it. A lot of preachers, they're enthusiastic and passionate, and they'll accept everything, and they get burnt out because they don't know how to say no. And often it's because they think, well, that's what they're called to do. And often because they think, man, I've been studying, preparing. I'll do this better than the person they're asking. I'll teach it. And usually it's true. I could do it better. But is there any Lone Ranger, independent member that doesn't need anybody else? In fact, when you don't allow someone else to do it, you're stymieing their growth. They need to get up there and struggle. They need to get up there and lead song and go, that was terrible, and you all need to applaud them, right? Way to go and get up there. It was terrible. No, it was great they tried. They got one note right, right? You know what I'm saying? Don't go negative on people. We got to build them up for trying, and there's no Lone Rangers independent in the church. Everyone needs everyone. That's interdependence, connection. Leg bones attached to the thigh bone and thigh bones attached to the, right? All right, you got the song. That's the way God made the body. You can't believe I sang that, right?
When we act or present ourselves where we don't need help or don't accept help,
Yes.
then you're robbing somebody else of the
Oh, nicely
chance
said.
to serve.
When you don't ask for help or don't accept help, you're robbing other people the opportunity to do their service. Good point. That's really true. Yes, Clinton.
People, when they come here to train, I've been known to run them off by being too friendly.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, it's better to do that than to do nothing.
Right. And sometimes if you're a good eye and you see people, just tell them, hey, that person looks your age. Go talk to him. You could be like a director too, right? It helps. So that's interdependence. Does that make sense, what we're talking about? So then the next thing I want to notice what he says. We're composed by God. There's an interconnection between all of us. And he says he so composed the body because he doesn't want any division in the body, but that everyone have the same care for one another. Right? I have enough time to tell a story. A good friend of mine that I grew up with in our early married life in Washington, Kirkland area, I was doing contracting, he was building, and one day he was in using, you know what a radial arm saw is? You put boards and you pull it, and the saw comes out, and sometimes it catches the wood and just pulls itself out, right? So you have to kind of just, right? So he was cutting some wood, and his fingers got down, and the blade grabbed and whoosh, chopped right there and his thumb off. You know, it's, oh, wow. I guess I didn't need those, you know. Now he gathered them up. Hospital, and they sewed them back on. This finger, and this thumb. These two took, but this one, just the thumbs, it was so mangled, and it just started turning black, so they had to cut it off. So he healed, and he had, now do you know what life is without a thumb?
Just for a little while.
I mean, pick up, look at this, I can't pick up, well, it's hard. You use the thumb for your glasses, you use the thumb for everything. It's just really hard. The thumb is so essential to your daily working and movement. It's just, especially if you're swinging a hammer and doing work. Without a thumb, you're crippled in many ways. You have to relearn how to work. So the doc said, tell you what, we can give you a new thumb. Oh, really? How are you going to do that? Well, that's the good news. The bad news, we have to cut your toe off. We're going to cut your toe off, and we can transplant it onto your thumb, and then your hand, you'll have a thumb. It won't look like a thumb. It'll have hair, and but it'll work, and you'll have it, but you won't have a toe. Now you got to decide which you want, a toe or a thumb. Well, a toe, all they do is stink, and they're just toes are unseemly, right? Who needs a toe? Wait a second. If you cut your big toe off, you don't know how to walk. You don't know how to keep your balance because you use that toe to push off and do all sorts of things. Your big toe. So he had to make a decision. Do I keep my big toe or do I have a thumb? And that's what Christ is saying. Every part is interdependent and interconnected. And even though sometimes we look at certain parts and we think, they're not that important, they're essential and we don't know it. And when you stub your toe in the night, what do? Your whole body. You just start jumping around. When one member suffers, the whole body suffers. Jim had his toe cut off, and he has it now as part of his thumb. It did take. It's funny to look at. I keep, I always, when I see him, hey, let's see your toe. I mean your thumb. But now that he's getting older, he's having problems walking because when you walk without a toe, it changes your knees, your hips, and everything, and now it's catching up with him. When one member suffers, the whole body suffers. There's no division. There's an interconnection. When one person is glorified, we all should be glorified. That's the way God created the body. Many members, what? One body. We've got to understand that. Each person got to get involved doing his or her part of the ministry. I know some of you went over to some of the widows' house and mowed their lawn. Is that what we're talking about here? Is that doing our work of service? Well, that's not worship. No, that's just it's just as important. Isn't it? That's the body taking care of one another. And like Roy said, I know Roy's people are giving attention to him and taking him out and doing things. Is that part of our function as a body of Christ? Well, that's not worship. Yeah, it's your personal worship. Isn't it? It's our function. And so all the things you do outside of this 1 hour here right now and 2 hours on Sunday is part of the function of the body of Christ. It's all essential. All the work that goes on behind the scenes during the week, if it stopped today and all those people just didn't do anything, this church would just freeze. All right? Each person doing his own part. And you got to value people. And here's what I'd suggest you do. You commend people. Get on this vigil of just this. I'm going to commend people. I'm going to find something nice to say about everyone for what they're doing. Does everyone need commendation every now and then to be built up for what they're doing? Not that they seek it, but you're going to give it to them to build them up, edify them. All right? So recognize people. Everyone, it's important to be recognized. And talk to each other. Talk. The biggest problem in division, that creates division, is the lack of communication. Because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Just communicate one with another. And then, just like in a marriage, you have to have a lot of prayer, a lot of patience with each other, and a lot of forgiveness. Because people will hurt you. They will let you down. They'll say things you will like. But we do the same thing, don't we? And just as much as I need forgiveness for when I mess up, I need you to forgive you for the things you do as well, right? And if we practice those things, we're going to be united. All right. That's Paul's message to them. 1 Corinthians 12. Thank you.